Throughout the course of our class, we've discussed the tragedy that struck Knoxville, Tennessee on October 19, 1882. Major Thomas O'Connor walked outside of Mechanic National Bank with a double-barrel shotgun and unloaded 2 shots into General Joseph Mabry, who had been walking down the opposite street. Upon hearing the shots, Joseph Mabry Jr. ran out of Justice Allison's office towards the bank. While O'Connor's attention was elsewhere, Mabry Jr. managed to run into the middle of Gay Street and take aim before someone shouted for O'Connor to look out. O'Connor then turned his fire on young Mabry. Mabry fired first, and then O'Connor. All 3 men died. At first glance, this seems like a tragic story of a cold-blooded murder and a son avenging his father. But the news article also mentioned why this all happened. The day before, General Mabry had confronted Major O'Connor at the fairground, insulting him and threatening his life. General Mabry wanted to shoot O'Connor right then and there, but O'Connor stated that it was neither the time nor the place, and gestured to all the women and children. General Mabry later sent O'Connor a message that said he would kill him on sight. O'Connor's friends were reported saying that, of course, he would be justified for shooting General Mabry on sight after receiving such a threat. The dispute between the 2 men started when O'Connor had purchased a farm from General Mabry. Mabry claimed that O'Connor had promised to give the farm to Will Mabry, who was murdered by Don Lusby the Christmas before after a cockfight. After the murder of his son, General Mabry's mind seemed to be affected, and he insanely accused O'Connor of hiring Lusby to kill Will in order to release him from his promise. Of course, no person who knew Major O'Connor ever believed he had anything to do with Will's death. In fact, prior to Will's death, O'Connor, who was then in Nashville, had heard that Mabry had said that he had made such a promise and sent a telegram to his attorney to refuse to give money for the farm until he removed said promise from the contract. General Mabry accepted. O'Connor and Mabry were on friendly terms until Will's death. General Mabry then started to blame O'Connor. General Mabry's friends, and even his son, tried to convince him that this was a ridiculous accusation. Later, General Mabry and Mabry Jr. confronted Don and Moses Lusby for killing Will. This resulted in the death of the Lusbys. The charges against both Mabrys were dropped. After their release, General Mabry seemed to be very mentally unbalanced. Now that you know the events leading up to the shooting, you can see that O'Connor was simply protecting himself from the mentally deranged General Mabry. O'Connor knew the character of his assailant, and he knew he would do what he threatened to do. General Mabry had already killed a man once. On October 21st, people from all over the South gathered together to mourn the